It's Monday, October 16th. I'm Geoff Schwartz. It's Geoff Schwartz is Smart. And you are live on Twitter, YouTube, on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Our Monday episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. Go to Prize Picks and use code GSSY for a first deposit match up to $100. You pick 2 to 6 players. If they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. We're making my selections for tonight's game, the Monday Night Football game between the Cowboys and the Chargers, at the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. And a rare Monday where Matt Ford is in. And Matt's in today because we want to celebrate a 4-1 weekend on this show. Matthew, we are now 19-9-1 in Broncos, and we have 20 points so far through 6 weeks. I did not think that was possible. We have never been this good in the National Football League, but we continue to take some ugly dogs. And, the one thing that this year we're doing a little bit differently is we are sprinkling a couple of those favorites, like the Lions, which you loved, which I didn't really have a feel for. Like, no, we're taking the Lions. We're doing it. I get it's a road team, but the Bucs stink, which is good because I have the Tampa Bay under 8.5 ticket. And Matt, we're doing good in the NFL.
We're flying, Geoff. Life's good. 19-9-1 in Broncos. You can't beat that. If I don't know. I feel like we've cracked a few things. I feel like this slate just sort of makes a bit of sense. Next week's going to separate the men from the boys. Next week is an ugly ass week. It's
Worse
also
this week?
And there's a lot of teams that aren't playing next week. There's a bunch of teams on bye. I think there's 3 fewer games next week than there were this week. And there's some really ugly ones. There's some like we've got Miami Philly next week, which is going to be amazing. I'm sure we'll talk about that a good bit on Thursday.
I'm looking at, we get a road Steelers +3 next week at the Rams. Oh, sign me up.
Yeah.
Underdog Steelers. Sign me up any day of the week. All right, let's get to what we saw yesterday in the National Football League.
Yeah, so obviously the big stories are the Eagles and the 49ers finally go down. So we've got 5-1 teams. And then there's a bunch of other teams that are lingering that we'll get to. But, there's definitely some teams that have stood out. And there's definitely some teams that I think have some question marks attached to their 5-1s. But obviously those 5 are the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Niners, and the Lions. Maybe we should just go through and rank those 5. Who do you feel most confident in and who do you feel least out of that group?
So the 49ers to me are still number 1, Matt. You can have games in the NFL where you don't play as well and you lose. Like, that's part of the NFL. It's not like college football where you lose a game and your season's over. Niners still 5-1. And we called this. We bet on the Browns, right? This was the game for Niners to have a little bit of regression. They had gotten all the attention, all the love. I think they had scored, 30 points in 8 straight regular season games. Purdy had never lost a regular season game. Like, everything was sky high for the Niners, right? You're going on the road. You're playing a Browns team starting P.J. Walker. It's a little bit wet and damp. And, they were going to lose this game. And to me, Matt, it changes nothing about how I feel about them. For you, to change nothing whatsoever? Like, this was just a natural progression in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. And, I mean, this is the kind of game the 49ers lose. It's key guys
any
go down.
Team in this situation, if this was the Chiefs, I'd be like, yeah, they're probably going to lose this game. Like, this is what the NFL is.
Yeah, I mean, let's stay on this side to maybe go out of order a bit here. So Brock Purdy, he's going to be he's been the big Rorschach test for take guys for a long time. He had a really ugly game and then had a pretty good final drive. He made a couple of really nice throws and guys were getting open, but he has some gas on those out routes. He looked pretty good at the end of the game. I'm sort of curious if same question back for the team back for Brock Purdy. Did your opinion change about him at all, or do you feel like he kind of played the way you thought he would?
I think the question now becomes what we have sort of kind of discussed at times is it Brock Purdy? Is it the offense? Is the weapons? All 3? Because when McCaffrey and Debo went out, the offense does change. Now that's the same way everywhere, right? But is he a quarterback that can elevate his offense without all his weapons there? There are other quarterbacks who certainly can in the NFL. I'm not sure Brock Purdy does that in the same manner other guys do. But again, Matt, he hasn't even played a full season of games yet. This is his rookie season still. He hasn't played 16 games, including the playoff games last year. So he's still learning, I think, how to figure out the NFL when he doesn't have his main guys there. And McCaffrey has too many reps. He was bound to get dinged up, which he always does. But they kind of beat him to death over the first 6 weeks. Which is funny because Shanahan had said they wanted to sort of give him less of a workload. They did none of that. Debo always takes a couple weeks off from injury, and this is kind of standard for the Niners. The question becomes, obviously, they play the Vikings. I'm looking at it right now next Monday night in Minnesota. So how do you bounce back on it? The Vikings are not very good. I know they beat the Bears, but if you bounce back and play fine, I think we're okay with the Niners. Like, we know what they are. It is interesting. Randy Gregory got cut by the Broncos or traded to the Niners, however, I forget, whichever worked, comes in, sack right away. Like the Niners just roll these guys in. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think the story here, by the way, and we're not going to, I think, touch on them very much in this show, but I want to bring attention to this. The Browns defense is incredible. The Browns have allowed the fewest yards through 5 games since 1971, and the third fewest ever through 5 games. They have 4 of the 5 best defensive performances according to EPA in the first 6 weeks of the season. This defense is really freaking good, dude. Like, it's a legitimate really Super Bowl championship defense. The question is obviously offensively, are they able to to kind of do enough to win offensively? But the Browns defense. So I think look, I think the credit that that the Browns get is valid. The criticism the Niners might get for the loss is valid. But to me, it doesn't change at all how I feel about them. The one team that I do sort of change is the Eagles, right? The Eagles lost to the Jets. And I think the reason why the Eagles loss changes for me a little bit is because they've sort of been showing these weaknesses, right? Offensively, not as explosive this season, just not running the ball quite as well. Like, things aren't going as well, right? And then you have a Jets game where you score 14 points in the first quarter, I believe, by halftime, and then don't score again. I know there were turnover issues. I mean, that throw by Jalen Hurts at the end of the game is like, for as good as he is, you can't have that throw, right? And I think the Eagles have been itching for this loss. They really have. And it finally happens. Now, like, they play the Dolphins this weekend. Maybe things change around. But I feel like through 6 games now, we sort of have the understanding that their offense is just not as good. I know numbers. I think there's some numbers that show them even from last year and EPA and things like that. But I don't know, Matt. My eye test kind of says they're not as good. And it hurt them in this game. And Lane Johnson, by the way, needs another raise because Lane Johnson went out the right tackle. Their offense went to shit. I mean, it was bad. So it changes a little bit about the way I feel about the Eagles because they've been itching for this loss. They haven't played particularly well in a lot of action, which, by the way, the Chiefs are like begging for a loss too. We'll talk about them in a second. And so I downgrade them just a little bit, but not to the point where I'm like, no, they're not winning the East or not like a Super Bowl appearance. Like, they're downgraded a little bit. Now for the Eagles, I want to see how they come back from this, right? And Jalen Hurts talked a little bit about this. Like, we've been here before, which I certainly have. But now you play a really good Dolphins team, who, in my opinion, is sort of the second best team in the NFL behind the Niners. Like, how do you come back? Like, you're playing a team that's going to score in the upper 20s, low 30s, most likely, not guaranteed. The Eagles get some guys back on defense. They should be better, but are you going to be able to match their offensive output in a way that you easily would have done last season?
Yeah, lots to react to there. I mean, I think the Eagles thing, like, this is a good reminder that most of the time, the teams that lose a Super Bowl do not start the next season that fast, and the Eagles have been the exception. 5-0 again. Obviously, like last year or 2 years ago with the Bengals, when they or no, it was last year they started 4-4. Then they ended up being 12-4 after that. But a lot of the time, it takes a little while to sort of coalesce. And they lost both coordinators, and they've whole new running attack. Like, they have a ton of new stuff going on with that team. Yeah. I'm not surprised that they lost. It was sort of like the Browns 49ers matchup, just like tough defense. They've just like looked flat. And if it feels like the Eagles, like, they don't generally make the kind of mistakes that they made Sunday. Like, they sort of take what's in front of them. So I'm not super worried about them, but I do feel like them playing the Dolphins is going to be super interesting. Like, the Dolphins, the interesting thing about these teams is like the Lions and the Niners, to me, feel, and the Eagles kind of have the same sort of team building philosophy. It seems like the Lions, when they got that touchdown to Jameson Williams, you were just sort of like, how many guys do they have? Like, they don't have the stars. They don't have Mahomes and Kelsey. They just have like a lot of different guys who can beat you, and good lines,
very good roster,
and good. Yeah, they're just like solid. And the Niners are kind of both. Like, they have all these stars, but then they also just have, like you mentioned, Gregory, and just all these guys who can just come up and win games for you. And the Eagles are like that too. Like the Eagles they're just sort of like, okay, maybe it's AJ Brown's day. Okay, maybe it's Goddard's day. Okay, maybe it's, the offensive line just grounds them down and it's just Swift and Gainwell all day. Like it's interesting. Whereas, Chiefs kind of just like, it's just how far can Mahomes take you? And this defense has been great so far. And then the Dolphins, like, what is happening? Like, how are they? Like, I don't know how anyone is going to stop them if they're healthy. Like, it doesn't matter who's running the ball for them. It doesn't matter. Like, if Waddle and Hill are out there, they can just do whatever they want. And so I have a feeling they could make a real statement this week against Philly. I like them as dogs. Yeah, I know that they'll be on the road and Philly be off a loss, but like, I just don't know how you stop them if they're clicking on offense.
Well, what Buffalo did, right? You're physical and you hit the wide receivers and you get to Tua. I mean, like this is a game where the Eagles' defensive line, they can make the difference in this game. If you get pressure on Tua, he's not the same quarterback, which a lot of quarterbacks are not the same. But the Dolphins, to me, that's why I have the Niners 1 still, Dolphins 2. I mean, the Lions, dude, it might be the third best team in the NFL right now. I'm not counting the head-to-head win against the Chiefs as a reason why. I mean, that game, we know the Chiefs should have won that game. I'm just looking at the way they're playing. They're playing good football, man. Look, they have built themselves in the offensive defensive lines. And look at the teams that we're talking about, the Eagles, the Niners, even the Chiefs. It's offensive defensive lines. Like they're doing this with Jared Goff, who couldn't win a game outside of Sean McVay ever. Now all of a sudden, Jared Goff is throwing dimes to Williams. Like they just have a very good roster and they play a physical brand of football. That was an impressive win. I know Tampa's not good, but to go on the road with all the hype you've had, to play outside on grass in a little bit of weather, hot weather compared to where you normally play. It's a big impressive win, man. We see a lot of times favorites go on the road in this situation and lose, and they kicked Tampa's butt. And so they're to me, I think they're the third best team. The Montgomery dude, I know that it's not fun to root for injuries, but our running back under thing we did this year is gonna hit like 70% of these guys. This position, no one stays healthy in this position, Matt. Like no one does. I mean, McCaffrey is close to being over already, but he's already getting beat up. It's week 6. It's week 6 already.
Yeah. I think Raheem Mostert might be the only one we don't hit. Like everybody else, I feel like you're going to hit on the unders.
It's wild. Quarterbacks too. I mean, we took a bunch of quarterback unders and unfortunately those guys got hurt. We do have some overs though. Like Mahomes might not get us over, by the way. And we'll talk about the Chiefs right now, I guess. The Chiefs are 5-1. They have the best point differential they've had under Patrick Mahomes through 6 weeks. The defense is legitimately good, Matt. It's a good defense. So the question is, are they going to figure out an offense? I don't know. What do you think? Yes. I vote yes, Matt. I vote yes, they figure out on offense. They need that intermediate guy in the wide receiving room. Maybe it's Rashee Rice, who's played better the last couple of weeks. He has the most targets outside of Travis Kelce. So I think there's a little bit of growth there with Mahomes and him. Watson being out kind of hurts, I think, the offense. Obviously, Kelce been a little beat up, but Thursday night, get a little bit break, come back up with the Chargers on Sunday. That game, by the way, is going to be close because every Charger-Chiefs game is 3 points. The Chargers treat it like their Super Bowl. And I have no worry about them. Like they're 5-1 and they haven't played great on offense, and that's the best thing they do. So they're going to be fine, dude. It doesn't worry me at all. But I think right now that you could put them 5th, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, a couple things on that. The point differential thing, I saw that tweeted out a bunch. It's like, yeah, well, they beat the Bears by 1,000. So that's definitely tilting the scales in the direction. The Chiefs never blow anyone out. They blew out the Bears. They won by 30. So that's one thing. The other thing, the Chiefs thing is like, I do think the defense is going to probably come back to earth a bit. They're over their skis. They're playing amazing. They deserve credit. Let's see if it lasts starting next week with the Chargers. The offense, like, yeah, it will continue to improve. I'm guessing, but I think it sort of goes back to what you were saying about Jalen Hurts a minute ago, where it's like he made one bad pass. It was about time. Like Mahomes just doesn't make those. Like Mahomes just doesn't ever put them in a position. It feels like, I mean, he did, the Detroit game, he had a few he probably wants back, but they weren't all his fault, obviously. But like, he just doesn't make the kind of mistakes that every other quarterback makes. Like we saw Josh Allen make last night. Like we saw, we see every quarterback make every week. So as long as he's there, the Chiefs have the highest floor of any team in the league. But I don't necessarily think like we should pencil them in for another Super Bowl run. They just don't seem like they have the horses at the moment. But somebody's going to have to knock them off. And when you look at the rest of the AFC, who's it going to be? Is it going to be the Dolphins? Can Tua actually in January in the cold, maybe an Arrowhead, like make that 3rd and 6 throw? Like that's the thing. Is like we know Mahomes can. We don't know if any. We don't really know if Brock Purdy can yet. We've seen Jared Goff do it at times. Let's see if he can still do it. So it'll be really interesting. It's a long season, and I think the Chiefs have the best perspective on that. Like Super Bowls aren't won in October. Maybe the Dolphins are going to feel like a team that felt that way, but I definitely am not like penciling them in for much. But I am impressed that they're able to just sort of march through people without a ton of talent around Mahomes, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want my voice spiked there. Yeah, but I think that that I think they will be fine. Moving forward. So I'm not as concerned about them. The question I think is, who's sort of next, right? Because you look at I think the AFC only has 2 teams under 500: the Patriots and 3, the Patriots, Titans, and Broncos.
We'll get to the Patriots.
And otherwise, so you have 4-2 Bills, who the Bills have now lost to the Jets and Jacksonville, right? But didn't look particularly good last night. Even though, Matt, you said it, man, before entering week 6. Like week 6 is the weird week, and the Bills played a weird football game last night.
They did.
Ravens are 4-2. Steelers are 3-2, which is crazy because if they go on the road and beat the Rams next weekend, they're 4-2. Wow. They're off a bye too. Oh, man. I really like that Steelers game, +3 in Los Angeles. It'd be a Steelers home game, essentially, right? I mean, the Rams have no one there. Browns are 3-2, don't have their quarterback right now. The South is a wreck. I don't know why the standings have it backwards here. They have Jacksonville. Oh, this is funny. I did this backwards. That's why. Jacksonville's going to win that division. The Colts are 3-3. I'm so glad we went on the fade Gardner Minshew train. People love him so much for playing well 5 years ago. Right? It's crazy to me. And then, the Chiefs, obviously, the Raiders, and the Chargers play tonight. I think they win. Who knows? But, there'll be a couple games behind the Chiefs there. So, I mean, are the Jets legitimately, they're 3-3. Are they a legitimate, like, playoff caliber team right now?
It feels like the Jets are talking themselves into the special team season. Like, the way that they were playing every game, even the games they've lost, they could have beaten New England's in one of their losses. Like, they play hard, and their defense, they feel a little bit like Cleveland, where it's just sort of like the defense just straps up and is like, we're gonna win. Like, just hang in there. And Zach Wilson, like, I saw a tweet that was a joke, I think, but like when you look at who he's played in these quarterbacks, like he's kept up with Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Like, he hasn't looked like an absolute embarrassment like he has in the past. Like, I think he maybe has turned a bit of a corner because I think his team believes in him. Like, I think a lot of it was mental. He obviously can throw. So I don't know, man. Like, maybe they see Rodgers around and they're like, hey, if we just get this guy back, like, I don't think that that's actually happening, but all they need to do is believe. And they have such a good defense. Their fans were bought in. Like, it just felt like everyone's just not ready for this sort of special season to end. Like, I think I'm buying them as at least like a team that's gonna be in the mix. But I can't believe I'm saying that.
So, bye week: Giants, Chargers, Raiders, Bills, Dolphins, Falcons, Texans, Dolphins, Commanders, Browns, Patriots. So you're playing, the Chargers, who might be a playoff team, the Bills, the Dolphins for sure, Dolphins again. The Commanders that'll probably fight tooth and nail to get close to a wild card berth. The Browns that might be a playoff team, and the Patriots who you can never beat. I mean, here's
the Browns Jets under today. What's the under going to be? Actually, 9.
No, that game. Oh, geez, there might be. I mean, there are places that put up numbers for weeks later. I wonder if that's up yet. But here's the deal. Okay, let's look at the AFC. So if we take the top 4 teams right now. Okay, it's the Chiefs, Dolphins, Ravens, Jaguars. And you have Buffalo. So those are 5 quarterbacks you would expect to be in the playoffs. All right.
Yep.
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Colts, Texans, Jets, Raiders, Bengals. And the Chargers haven't played yet, the fifth game yet. So the first, we got 5 teams. Chiefs, so you have Mahomes, Tua, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. All right. Let's just say that the Chargers and Bengals are up there. So by the end of the season, right? So then you have Justin Herbert and you have Joe Burrow. Let's say Deshaun Watson comes back in place. You have Deshaun Watson in the mix. Is Zach Wilson going to take a playoff spot from Herbert or Burrow or Deshaun Watson? Like, who's he taking that playoff spot from?
Right.
Because one of those teams has to be out.
That's the right call.
Like, one of those teams has to be
That's
out.
the right
Like, yeah. See, I mean, I could see the Chargers blowing it and he taking the Chargers spot, but like, it would be shocking to me if they made it in over the Chargers or the Bengals at this moment.
Yeah, the Bengals, I think you're right. And I think the Jets are going to be fun, and they're going to be a fun team to watch compete for another few weeks until maybe the wheels fall off. Like, there are 1 or 2 people away on their team from, like, if they were to lose Garrett Wilson, not obviously not rooting for that, or like 1 or 2 key pieces on the defense, like things could sort of fall apart quickly. And those things, it's football, that happens. Let's talk about the Bengals and maybe the Bills for a second, because they both had sort of these ugly wins. It's every week people are doing the like, where are you on the Bengals thing? I think the Bengals are going to be completely fine. I would not count them out in that division. Like we were talking about on Thursday, like their defense is going to round into form. It's whether their offense can actually, turn things around if Burrow's healthy. And I think like they're not playing well yet, and they're still winning games. Like Seattle, that was an ugly ass game, but they just
Gino did not. There were opportunities. Gino just didn't play well. I don't know. I don't know if I put that win on the Bengals or more that the Seahawks and Gino just didn't do a good job. I don't know. I haven't watched that film back yet. Just watching it on TV. That's the way I felt.
Yeah. Well, their pass rushes looked great all year, the Bengals. I just think like the Bengals, to me, they have to figure out their running game. Like it doesn't feel like Mixon's there quite as much, and it feels like without that second back, like they've really struggled. But I'm still buying them. I think the Ravens are a team that I don't know what that team is. Nice win, but like they almost let that one get away from them. It feels like they just play a bad quarterback every week, and at some point they're going to fall back to earth. I don't know, man. The AFC's a mess. It just feels like if they're all playing catch up behind the Chiefs and Dolphins, and then the Bills last night. I'm pissed that we put Carolina in our picks and not the Giants, because all game it just sort of like I don't know about you. I didn't feel surprised at all that the Bills came out slow. Like we talk about this on the Thursday show.
Yeah.
Teams coming back from London always start slow. And like, yeah, the Jags didn't, but the Jags go every year, and the Jags were there for 2 weeks. Like we should have known Buffalo was going to start slow and that the Giants were going to throw everything they had at this game. I don't know. I don't take a ton out of that one for Buffalo. Like they still won. I think in a few weeks, no one will even remember that game. But I'm curious if you think there were more warning signs than that.
I mean, the Bills just they feel like untrustworthy, right? Like you have a game where you beat the Dolphins by 28, and then you have other games in the season when you lose to Jacksonville by 5 in London, lose to Jets by 6, and you barely beat the Giants. Like they're just not very trustworthy, I don't think. Like the Chiefs, we at least say, okay, well, they've won 2 Super Bowls. Like they sort of have this rhythm down. The Bills haven't done that. The Bills haven't played in a Super Bowl yet. So the inconsistency, I remember 2 years ago, they were the highest variance team, which means that week to week, they had the most variance of any team. So 1 week they're good, one week they're bad. It feels like we're going to encroach on that territory again this year.
Yeah, that is what it feels like. It just they feel like they have earned this. Oh, we can take a few weeks off. We can sort of lose control, like you said, like Kansas City does. They haven't earned it, and they act like a lot. They've accomplished a lot more than they have, and I feel like it's it can come to bite them. But next couple weeks, New England's Tampa at Cincy, always that game will be insane for a lot of reasons. Then it's like Denver Jets. I don't know. They have a few easy ones on the schedule, but man, they then go at Philly, at KC. There's a lot of tests for Buffalo.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting with Miami way up their heels.
There's a few fun games coming up. So we got all these teams we talk about, like the Bengals come out for their bye and play the Niners, Bills back-to-back weeks. Like there's some fun games coming up here as we get closer to the end of not the end of the middle point of the NFL season. Anything else NFL related? I don't know what the Rams are. Can we talk? Like, what are the Rams?
Yeah, let's talk about the Rams. Yeah.
What are the Rams? I have no idea.
I think, and we were texting about this a bit yesterday. I think that Sean McVay has rounded the corner from like everyone was so in on him that he was to now he's underrated. Like we were talking before the season about what a dead team they were. Like he's created stars out of Kyron Williams, out of Puka Nacua. Like the offensive line is holding up. Like you watched them play yesterday. They couldn't get anything done in the first half. It was this ugly game, and then they just ran the same running play 100 times the second half, and they couldn't stop Kyron Williams, and he had 150 rushing yards. Like he's a good coach. Like I don't know. Like he's not mentioned in the same sort of breath. I think because he had so much talent a few years ago when they won the Super Bowl. But like the guy just wins games, and I don't know. I think that they're just sort of like they're kind of like the Steelers. Like they're just one of these teams that's just like if in a general, if it's a toss up, you want to bet on the good coach.
Yeah, we had Rams over 6.5 plus 110 for our preview show.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that was for you. I didn't like that one. I think that's on you. Stafford over 3,600 yards. I mean, he looks like well on the way to doing that, right? We just assumed if he was healthy this season, he would be able to throw for a lot of yards. And so far, he's at 1,677. So I think we're in good shape.
Nacua might go over 3,600 yards. I mean, he was the leading receiver in the NFL until last week.
Stafford's on pace for 4,700 yards, so I think we're okay. I think we could hit that if he stays healthy. So I was curious. I think you're right about McVay, and I think when we looked at this roster and look, there's like 35 new players on this roster, right? They're going to have a trouble getting it together, and they just haven't, man. Like their +1 on point differential, like they just come to play each week. Now, actually, again, I'm curious about them playing the Steelers this week. I do think that the Arizona Cardinals, the fun has worn off of them. Like they kind of reverted back to being bad. And they're on the road in Seattle this weekend. It's -8 right now. I'm going to write an article after this for Fox Sports. I kind of do like an early preview for the week. Seattle -8 is going to be one of my plays. Like the Cardinals are sort of done. I mean, they've lost the last 3 weeks, 19 points, 14 points, and what? Yesterday was 17 points. Like that was fun, but they're like not. They kind of came back to earth now. Like they Dobbs got figured out. No James Conner, and they're just not as good anymore. Like they beat the Cowboys, that was great. But like we have Cardinals under 4.5. I that thing's probably going to hit. I think no one thought that was going to be the case, but they're just not. They kind of just hit the wall again. Not even again. They're not good. They're not a good roster. They came out fast. They're just not good. It's not good. It's okay.
Well, I don't think that's a hot take at all. To go back to the Rams for a second, the thing you did in the AFC, let's do in the NFC. It's like if Stafford's healthy, who's taking this? So obviously the Eagles, the Lions, someone from the NFC South, and the Niners are the playoffs.
What a disaster! Oh, the NFC
not even worth the time.
No,
just a terrible.
Okay. So that's like, 4.
So who's getting that? So Dallas probably. Then so that's 5. Then it's basically between like maybe the Packers can turn Vikings.
Hold on a second. Okay. So it's Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. Then whatever does whatever is in the Dak and a NFC South quarterback. Then here's the rest of the options. You ready?
Probably Heineken is probably the bet there.
Geno, Stafford, Howell, Ritter, Carr, Love, Cousins, whatever is playing for the Bears. Now that Fields is hurt, Daniel Jones, Josh Dobbs, and Bryce Young. You know what? Yeah. I'm going to find a Rams make the playoffs wager right now and see what it's at, because that feels like a good place to put someone to put their money on right now. That's crazy.
And they get the Cardinals again. Like they have like a pretty. I mean,
NFL.
they have like a pretty decent chance, and I don't know, man. It's betting on McVay and Stafford. Like, I don't think that's crazy, and it's like, tell me the other teams in the NFC. Like,
Oh my God! Wait, hey, Rams to reach the playoffs right now is plus 115. Yes,
I like it.
right. Like
I think we should put that. Let's throw that in our season-long bets. We usually
Okay.
make a few during the season.
Yeah, I think we have like $300 left, and after
Let's put 100 on.
I did eventually go back and put all our money on our wagers, which we did obviously like in the real time, but I did put it on the dock, so I went back and fixed all that. All right, so I went back to, I just went through the account and found all my wagers. I mean, it took a while, but we figured it out. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put this right here. Rams make the playoffs. We have Raiders' worst record. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. Rams to make playoffs.
Well,
plus 115.
Yeah,
okay, $100.
They
all right,
probably are going to lose the rest of their games. Real quick, speaking of worst record, I just wanted to take. I know we've gone a little bit long in the NFL here. I think we got to take 2 minutes to laugh at the Patriots. Like, this is of all of the stories of this year, we have the Patriots. We took them over, which I think was still like, it makes sense. Mac Jones was not this bad. They had some nice pieces. We talked ourselves into Belichick like everyone else did. And like, here we go. Like, the thing about the Patriots that's so strange is like, you look at their roster, dude, and it's like, people talk about should they sell their team for parts. Who's buying anything on their team?
Oh, no,
like, what do they have?
Roster.
There's nothing. There's nothing there. And then sometimes you look at these bad teams or these teams that have sort of like, taken things apart, and you go like, man, they have some players that are playing pretty well elsewhere around the league. The Patriots don't even have that. Like, they haven't drafted. The only player who they've had on their roster in the last 5 years who's anything is Jacoby Myers, who had a really nice game against them for the Raiders. But like, they haven't even drafted guys that have had success elsewhere. They have just gotten nothing for damn near half a decade on this team. And watching them fall apart, it's not even fun. It's sad. Like, you're watching this team just like, they have no horses. They don't seem to play that hard. And they're just getting, I mean, the fact that Bill Belichick lost to Josh McDaniels and Brian Hoyer off of a fucking safety, like, what is happening with this team? Like,
they're
like
just bad. They're very bad.
If you change the uniform and the coaching staff, you'd think it was like Nat Hackett and the Broncos last year. Like, it's that level of just like apocalyptic.
So you have the Patriots, the Broncos, the Bears, Giants, Cardinals, and Panthers at 1-5 or worse. The Panthers are 0-6. If the Patriots were to play the Broncos, the Bears, the Giants, Cardinals, and Panthers, which of those teams do you absolutely pick the Patriots to beat?
None of them. I think the Panthers would beat them. I honestly do. Like, the Panthers can move the ball. They don't do it well, but they can. Like, are the Patriots getting to 17 against anyone that's not the Raiders? Like, I don't see how they can. Like, the Panthers are at least try. Like, I just don't even think
the Patriots they have the second worst point differential in the NFL, and the worst of the Giants, who lost 40-0 and whatever they lost to the other team by 1,000 points. So that's Whew.
It's sad. It's kind of great, but it is sort of sad. Like, you want them to at least. It's like the Patriots fans don't even sweat their season. They're so lost.
They're on Caleb Williams' watch, 100%.
Yeah. If they get Caleb Williams after all this, I'm gonna be so mad. Like, they don't deserve it. That would be like the Luck Manning thing and the Rodgers Favre thing all over again. Not worth it. No. Speaking of Caleb Williams, should we move on to college
let's
football?
Do it. Yeah.
All right. So let's start there. So Caleb Williams had his first bad game, I guess, ever, and Notre Dame won a big game for what also felt like the first time. I caught the end of that one. Why don't we start there? Like, did you think that there was any actual warning signs for Caleb looking ahead, or did you feel like this was just sort of bound to happen as, a young player goes through his college career?
Well, USC is not very good. They're not as good as their record indicates, or the way that they're framed as. Their offensive line has not been good this year. It's been Caleb Williams trying to save the day, which he tried to do too much of this game. The defense played better this game, but isn't great. They allowed a punt return. They're just not. They've been. The reason why I picked Notre Dame to win this game was they've been itching for this to happen. They have not played good football in the last month. They played a Notre Dame team that we looked at the Louisville game and thought way too much about. That was a game they were bound to lose. They lost. Notre Dame just out-physicaled them. They out-toughed them. And Lincoln Riley, I talked about this even maybe with Gabe last week on my radio show, on my Pac-12 show. There's already talk about Riley. Just they've asked about the NFL. He hasn't said no. He didn't say no. He's like, the better hours, no recruiting. That's what he said. Matt, it feels like a lot of dysfunction there, not a lot of buy-in. So here's my college football. I've been getting to this take for a while now. It's about, and I've been out west. I cover the Pac-12 for a living, so I see it most out west. So there's two teams built primarily through the transfer portal. It's USC and Colorado. And it's so hard, in my opinion, to build your offensive defensive lines through the portal. That typically is the backbone of your team, right? It's where the most physicality comes from. It's where the leadership comes from. So when times are tough, you go back to the offensive defensive lines. And when you don't have those guys from like 18 years old in the weight room, building together, battling together, and you just sort of throw them all in the pot at once, you don't get like this sort of team toughness, right? This sort of team bonding. And we're seeing it happen. I saw a video, and I'm love that Colorado puts these videos out. But it was either, I think it was a coach or a scout basically said, hey guys, you have terrible practice habits. There's no leadership here. You're bitching about your coach. I hear all of this. And that's like my point. You've 85% of your team is transfer portal players. They're mercenaries, right? They don't have that deep connection to the program. The coach is not coming in when they're 18 years old and instilling sort of like the team culture in you. And when you come there as a mercenary, you're there to play. When you don't play, you get upset that you're not playing, right? Like, and then it kind of that sort of that mentality sort of bleeds its way through the program. I just think it's hard to build a team in the portal in those positions. And when you do that, like USC is trying to do it on the defensive line, on the offensive line, like that foundation's sort of not there. And I just think that's a big problem with the transfer portal. Maybe it's nothing. I'm trying to think of other teams that feel that same way around the country to me, but specifically to like USC, man, they don't have coaching's a problem on defense, obviously, but they kind of don't have like USC guys, right? Guys that sort of have been in the program that feel that USC pride, right? I know that everyone's prideful for their team. I get that. But sometimes like you just need to kick someone's ass and you need to have those guys, the offensive lines. And Notre Dame, by the way, they did that. They kicked USC's ass in the trenches. I don't know. Maybe it's a bunch of hot air about the portal, but I do feel like it's been floating there for a while. Like, okay, Oregon, for example, I know we lost to Washington. We should have won the game. It is what it is. Washington won. You got to find a way to win these games. I don't know what to tell you, Oregon fans. Matt, I have this. I haven't tweeted this out yet because I just don't want the dumb people on my Twitter. I'm going to pull it up right now, though. So everyone talks about, fourth downs, right? Oregon was 0 for 3 on fourth down. The first one they should have gone for. The other two I'm fine with. The play call stunk. It is what it is. So last year, Oregon was 20 of 32 on fourth down. Good. Entering this game, they were 8 for 10, went 0 for 13, so 8 for 13 this season. What's crazy is that the last play of the Washington game last year, the last fourth down, I should say, the Oregon State game last year, and the Washington game this year, they're 0 for 9 in their last 9 fourth down attempts against those specific opponents. So is that bad luck? Is it bad coaching? Bad execution? I mean, if one of those convert, Matt, Oregon wins that game, we never talk about this. And we actually talk about probably Washington running the ball 3 times inside the 10-yard line for no points at the end of that game, right? But here's my point about Oregon and the way that I think, and Washington's, by the way, mostly the same way too, is, again, like you can supplement the portal with 1 or 2 guys on the offensive defensive lines, but those teams, man, are built with guys they have grown, homegrown guys that they have built up, that have that have worked together for years now, that have that shared connection of being in the program. Again, Oregon's best offensive lineman has been there his whole career. Oregon's best defensive lineman has been there his whole career. I'm not saying you can't add in the portal. You can certainly add in the portal. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you sort of need that backbone of your team in the trenches to be those guys. Obviously, at quarterback, it doesn't matter as much. Michael Penix transfer, Bo Nix transfer, those guys are great leaders. But in those specific areas of like, we got to hunker down and make plays and beat someone up and put this game on our backs. It's those trench players. And I don't know, it's a take I've been having for a while about college football. And I feel like it's starting to show itself now. Certainly in Colorado a little bit, but certainly at USC, man. Too many guys that you're brought in as mercenaries.
I love this take. It explains the feeling I've said on this show many times. Like, I'm not a huge college football fan. I sort of keep an eye on it, but it's kind of this feeling of sort of hollowness. And it started, I think, with the realignment, where it's just sort of like, oh yeah, that thing that meant a lot to you, that rivalry, like that's just not a thing anymore. Like, now USC is going to play Maryland every year in the Big Ten. Like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's this feeling of sort of like, college football, like you said, it's all about that sort of like deep relationship. From you get recruited, you go to this place, it becomes your home, it becomes your program, and then you take it with you moving forward. And it's an interesting thing that it would extend to the O-lines like that.
Matthew, very
Jeffrey.
quickly. Maryland goes to Oregon in 2024. Are you going to Eugene for the big Maryland?
I'll go with Maryland.
You. I'm seeing when Oregon comes to Maryland. Let's see, what year is this?
College Park, Geoff. If you go to that game, I'll personally go and take you to Arch Bentley's.
2027, Oregon at Maryland.
Let's go. Lock it in.
Go ahead. Continue.
No, we I don't think we need to talk too much about Maryland, who lost to Illinois. No. But I am curious. After this weekend, Penix, I think, huge weekend for him.
Yeah.
He's been sort of like the other name in the draft conversations. Now he's the favorite to win the Heisman. He's minus 150.
That was his worst game of the year. This is my point about Oregon. Like, he was 22 of 37. Like, we had the chance to win this game. Penix probably wins the Heisman. I mean, his schedule is pretty. So Washington's going to be undefeated until this schedule they have here. I'm going to pull it up because it's important to look at. Because here, let me pull up the rankings here, standings. Here we go. They play, I think, Stanford or Arizona State, then Stanford, and then their schedule gets much tougher. So it's Arizona State this weekend, Stanford, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, Washington State. Washington State's kind of falling off the map right now. So, the next couple of weeks he's going to rack up the stats, and then they go to at USC. That would be a primetime game. Host Utah, a primetime game. Cam Rising, maybe not back. At Oregon State. So at Oregon State, it's the game where this is the only game, in my opinion, they lose in this. If they lose a game at all, is at Oregon State. But he's going to have this back half of the schedule full of primetime opponents to make his case to be the Heisman. We have not seen a quarterback who doesn't run at all win a Heisman in forever. Joe Burrow was a pocket quarterback. I'm pulling up right now. He threw for 5,600 yards, but he also rushed for, he also had Justin
Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Yeah.
But look, Rome Odunze is a first round wide receiver. Jalen McMillan's these guys at Washington are first round wide receivers. He rushed for 300. The rush attempts kind of stink because of the sacks, but they had him for 115 rush attempts for 368 yards in that season. Penix, I would imagine Penix has no more than 100 yards rushing at most this season. He has he has only 9 rush attempts all season long for 4 yards.
Wow.
So it'd be interesting because like Jaden Daniels right now, who's not playing obviously for a championship contender in LSU, his numbers are pretty good. He's nearly 2,300 yards right now, 22 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he adds in 500 so far, 500 rushing yards. So I'm curious about that dynamic, right? Like, is Penix going to get the love, be a pocket quarterback when a guy like Jaden Daniels, who still has some big games ahead of him, will they downgrade Penix and upgrade Daniels because he runs the ball a little bit more?
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll see. Any last words on? Your coach Dan Lanning took the L himself. He did the whole "Hey, put it on me, guys."
I'm not worried about it.
You think that was him, or do you think?
No. Well, okay.
Walk me through that in the rest of the year.
Okay, so the first one, the first fourth down, he should have gone for, right? He should have kicked the field goal. That was the end of the first half. Take the 3 free points, go into halftime. The other 2 I'm fine with. The second one, Bo Nix there were 3 guys open. You didn't look in that direction. I don't know what to do. I mean, how do you you have to make those plays if you're Bo Nix. The rollout on the end was terrible, even though I like it. Look, you get a first down, the game's over. I just don't like those. I don't like the play calls, right? Pretty interesting here. Bill Conley, SB Plus and ESPN.com wrote this. They've gained at least 3 yards on 70% of their snaps this season. And they went 0 for 3 on 4th down. Like, it feels like it just didn't happen for us. Like, you convert one, Matt, you win the game, right? And it didn't happen. So I like being aggressive. He'll learn from this. Got to beat Washington. Tough schedule moving forward. I'd love to play him again in the Pac-12 championship game, but I don't know if that's realistic with our schedule. We got Washington State at Utah. We host USC and Oregon State. So we have at least the rest of those tough games outside of Utah at home. So I don't know. I'm bummed. Losing college football games is much worse mentally than NFL games. Like NFL, because you have such a long season. Like, you could lose 3 or 4 games and be fine. You lose 7 games and be fine in the NFL. College football, like, 1 game, you're like, this is it. Season's ruined. Which is why I think that the 12-team playoff that's the best part about it. It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. At least you didn't lose to Illinois. Should we look ahead to tonight's game down the street from me here?
Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll go over our prize picks. How about that?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's. All right, we're back after a short break there. Let's go prize picks, Matt. I'm going to do a 3-score entry, which I do every week for Monday Night Football. Chargers, Cowboys tonight. We know the game is going to be 3 points in either direction with Brandon Staley having to make a 4th down decision. It's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait to watch it. Promo code's GSSY. Join us on prize picks. It's a lot of fun. You choose if a player is going to do more or less than their projection, Matt. I've had a lot of fun with this each week. We've hit some. We haven't hit some. You can win up to 25 times your money if you hit all 3, or you can do 4, 5, 6, however you want to do 2. Whatever. I do 3 every week. I like doing 3. Here we go. You ready? Austin Eckler's back, Matt. Austin Eckler's back. More than 85.5 rushing and receiving yards. He's back. They're going to use him a lot. He'll be using in the pass game a lot. I'm buying Austin Eckler stock tonight. What do you think?
I love it, man. He's had plenty of time to rest. They succeed when they run the offense through him. I'm with you there.
All right, the next one. Justin Herbert more than 278.5 passing yards. And the reason why I'm doing this with his busted finger is Kellen Moore knows the Cowboys defense very well. He's the Chargers offensive coordinator. And I love in this spot, the Chargers are off a bye. They know the Cowboys defense very well. I think Justin Herbert just shreds them tonight. Yes or no? Do you agree?
Absolutely. The total in this game is over 50. This is going to be a high-scoring game with a lot of, I don't know, I think just a lot of chaos is going to happen. These are classic Justin Herbert games. Start hot, blow a lead, comes down to the final possession, lots of passing yards. I think over is the way to lean tonight. Go ahead with your last one.
All right. My last one is Tony Pollard more than 67.5 rushing yards. The reason why I'm going Pollard over here, Pollard more rushing yards, is the Chargers still can't stop the run. I think the Cowboys try to get back to the roots of how they run their offense, which is run the ball, play action pass. And this feels like a low number for him in a game where I think they kind of force feed him to sort of restart the offense. What do you think about the Pollard there?
I like Pollard. I think I like that one. I want to see what you think about here. So on Prize Picks, Keenan Allen is over under for receptions is 7. I think the over there makes a lot of sense. He's averaging 11 targets a game. The only 2 players with more are Nakua and Chase. He had a 20 target game 2 weeks ago. I just feel like that's one like I do like Pollard and Eckler because I think both teams are going to need to just give their defenses a breath.
Yeah.
But I do think that Keenan Allen tonight, if you have him in fantasy, I feel like he's just going to go absolutely bananas tonight. So yeah, Nick nominates a possible 4-square play there. I'm curious if you're willing to throw that one in your mix.
I can do that. I can make another one. How about I make 2 of them? I wonder if I could add. I wonder if I could add to it. I don't know. I've never tried to
Like a round robin type deal.
Yeah, can I add? Can I add? I don't know if I can add another one. I might have to make a second one, another one. Just do 4. So I'm doubling down with a 4-square. I like it. You can also do one too, Max. Promo code GSSY. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right, everyone. That's our show for today. Matthew, we'll be back on Friday, me and you, to make some more winning picks. We've done a great job so far. We'll continue. The mojo continue doing great things. I appreciate everyone listening. Please, if you're listening now, you like our show, leave a rating, tell your friends to subscribe. We really appreciate it. Good luck tonight. Enjoy the game. It's going to be wild. We know what's going to happen at the end of this game. I cannot wait to watch it. Have a great couple of days, everyone. Talk to you guys on Friday.